Franchise CEO, I think one of the hardest jobs in the world is so hard because of the psychology that comes from it. So you're basically giving your brand to someone who they're paying you a licensing fee. And then with that money, you go and hire people to police the brand and tell them what they can and can't do. It's really hard to get your head around. So that's why it's all about relationships. And you need to have that trust. You need to have, someone who is going to go into war for you, that they're going to protect the brand at whatever cost.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Organization Business Podcast. I am your host, Lynn Pedetti. My guest today is Aaron Smith, the founder of KX Pilates and a proud member of EO Melbourne. Started in 2010, KX Pilates has transformed into Australia's largest Pilates franchise, boasting over 100 studios across Australia, Indonesia, China, Singapore, Taiwan, and New Zealand. In November 2018, Aaron made a strategic move by stepping down as CEO to focus on innovation and international expansion. He managed to exit the business without selling it, affording him more time for his family and travel adventures. In this episode, Aaron candidly discusses the challenges of franchising, shares insights on how he navigated the turbulent waters of the COVID era, and offers valuable advice on hiring your own CEO to run the business for you. Additionally, he has exciting news to share about the launch of his upcoming book, where he opened up everything about his entrepreneurial journey. Plus, he unveils a $20,000 business grant for fellow entrepreneurs that you can apply for. So join me in extending a warm welcome to Aaron. Thank you so much, Aaron. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, first, Aaron, I would love to hear from you how you were able to build such an amazing big business. Yeah, I'd love for you to share with the audience.
Well, how long do you have? Let's be honest. Look, short version, just so we can get some other questions in here. I was traveling overseas quite young in my early 20s. I just always wanted to find something to bring back to Australia. I was in the fitness industry back here as a personal trainer, but knew that sort of world was very saturated. I'm an avid snowboarder as well. So I started my travels over in Colorado in the ski fields, teaching very wealthy clients, and then went over to London, where I stumbled across the style of dynamic Pilates. Pilates at the time in Australia was very much physiotherapy driven. So physiotherapists realized they could extend the life of their client by bringing a Pilates studio into their physiotherapy practice and adding another 10 weeks to their client's life cycle. But that was very much on the rehabilitation front, and the fitness Pilates wasn't really in Australia, certainly not in reformer Pilates. Popular today, probably the only thing back then was mat Pilates in a gym, which gets quite boring after a while. But I just fell in love with the style of fitness. I worked myself up to be head trainer in the boutique studio in London. I watched the style of fitness grow. So we were the first of its kind in London, with 2 studios. And then by the time I'd left 3 years later, there was over 15 studios and 5 brands. And all of them were our trainers that ended up going out on their own because owner at the time didn't want to have business partners. So she learned the lesson the hard way that her trainers became her competition. And then myself came back to Australia, opened up the first dynamic Pilates studio in Melbourne in 2010. I learned a lot in London about what not to do in business. As I just said, a lot of clients were coming to us as trainers, and also the trainer mentality is that you always want your own thing at the end of the day, and probably a bit of arrogance in the trainer mentality. You think you can do better. Fast forward, 13 years, over 100 studios. I would say half of those studios are from clients of KX that love the brand so much. They've either had kids, they want to get back in owning their own business, or they're trainers that then have worked their way up to eventually own their own studio as well. And like me, having no idea about business when they first started, we know how to be good trainers. We know how to build relationships and really enjoy the experience in studio. We have no idea about the ins and outs of business. So that's why I franchised the business in 2013, because just like I started with no idea, teaching the trainers and teaching the clients how to run a business is the soul of what KX Pilates is now. And yeah, so fast forwarding, we've got about 10 company studios and over 100 franchise studios now. So that's the short version. I'm happy to pick it apart.
Yeah.
It's literally talk about the journey for hours and hours.
Yeah, that's a really great summary of it. And so just to clarify, from your experience, did you decide to franchise it from the day you opened, or was it and you thought you were just going to be running it yourself, and then 3 years in, you're like, okay, I'm thinking about considering the franchise?
I knew to grow the franchise model was the best way to do it. Even as the franchise grew, we had a lot of areas that were snapped up under territories at the time. But then our trainers, they didn't want to open up in places that they'd never heard of. They wanted to open up in the blue chip suburbs of Melbourne and Sydney at the time. So and because we couldn't offer them anything, they went out and opened their own studios and became almost KX copycats as well. So the franchise journey was always something that I knew that to grow, that was the right avenue for KX. In the beginning, though, we opened 6 studios before we started franchising. So 2 studios were myself, and that was just me grinding, setting the way of boutique fitness wasn't around in 2010. Let's just rewind a little bit. So you had a couple of yoga studios going around. Big Room Yoga was pretty big back then. But apart from that, I mean, F45 came along in 2013, like 3 years later. So 2010 was the 24/7 gym craze. Anytime Fitness, Jets, Zap, Snap, they were crazy back then. So you were paying $12 a week for a gym membership. When I came in and I was trying to, charge $30 for one class, it was pretty crazy time. So I really had to pave the way of boutique fitness, pushing through that sort of providing an exceptional experience, paying more for that small group environment, and having all the little boutique things that the 24/7 gyms didn't have. And then one of my trainers in 2011 came to me saying, hey, I want to get involved. Not dissimilar to what happened in London, but instead of turning her away, the franchise wasn't ready then. So we decided to open 3 studios together, which was perfect for me. I opened the doors and did everything from the build and the pre-sale and all that sort of stuff. And then as soon as the doors were open, she ran the studio day to day. And after grinding it out for a couple of years, I realized my passion wasn't. And this is also, I was 3 years in London. So you're looking at 5 years of teaching, a lot of classes every week. When I opened the doors, I was doing everything from marketing to the admin, booking classes. And, back then I was taking bookings off an Excel spreadsheet because we didn't have any booking systems back then. So it was a lot of work. And my passion went from helping the client to then moving into business. And I realized how much my passion for business was really thriving the more I learned. So her name is Ali Sensor. She came on and she ran those 3 studios day to day as a partnership, which enabled me to step back and then focus on franchising. So then I got my franchise ever. And in 2013, we sold our first size, and the rest is history.
Oh, okay. And so with the franchising opportunity, was it that you had a goal of like, I'm going to open up this amount of franchise in X amount of years, or was it really organic where you're doing your thing, what you love, and then people are just popping up going, hey, I want one, and then you start to kind of going with the flow?
Yeah, so I joined EO in 2014, as we were just saying, in Sydney when I moved up there with my wife to open the flagship studio for Sydney. But I joined, when I opened the doors of KX, funnily enough, the first day no one came in because I didn't know about business. I had no idea about pre-sale and marketing. I got the studio looking what I thought at the time was perfect, but looking back, it was terrible. And I had to learn absolutely everything about business. So a couple of months in, I was struggling. All my friends are in 9-to-5 jobs at the time. I didn't really have anyone to talk to apart from my father, was in business for 40 years. So he was really my mentor at the time. And then the entourage was just starting up. So Jack DeLosa, Andrew Morello, they were just starting. So I joined the entourage. I jumped in and I learned absolutely everything that I could. I was an absolute sponge. So everything I learned every month, I implemented in the business, and if it worked, fantastic, and if it didn't, then just throw it out the door and keep going. So strategic partnerships, online, social, absolutely everything. So that was kind of where it began in terms of going out and getting the help. So the first month in that first course with the entourage, I wrote down 50 franchises and 10 company studios, and I'd sell by 2020. So that was my 10-year plan, and we reached that goal in 2018, which is pretty cool. But it wasn't about the exiting then. It was like, okay, wow, this is just starting to kick off. Reformer Pilates is just getting popular. I still remember sitting down with my first lawyer who did all the franchise documentation, and we were looking at territories at the time going, oh, maybe 9 studios can open in Melbourne. And she's like, what are you talking about? At least 14, 15. And fast forward now, we have 38 studios in Victoria. So a majority of those are in Melbourne. So it just shows that not only demographics have changed, boutique fitness have changed, and Reformer Pilates is the most popular it has ever been. Low resistance but high intensity exercise is super, super popular. The CrossFit craze came through and injured a lot of people, which then brought people to KX. The F45 craze came through, injured a lot of people, came to KX. So people wanted that intense workout, but the lot that KX has on the Reformer makes it perfect. So yeah, I did have that goal. I did have that dream, surpassed it. And then that goal kind of changed. I had a COO for a short time in 2018 who had international experience in franchising. We went overseas to an American or a global franchise conference and basically came back and changed that goal to 500 studios globally, which is still kind of there. But in terms of how fast we get there, timing is not really the key here. We've always grown slow and steady. Perfect example, I kept bringing up F45, but how not to do something.
Yeah.
The way to look at it, they sold to anything and anyone, and they're suffering for it now. But KX is about slow and steady growth, bringing on the right people. And our model of franchising, we take a percentage of revenue from the studios. So if they succeed, we succeed. So it's not about opening up 1,000 studios and closing 500 down. It doesn't work that way for us. So we really have a strict recruiting process. We only really bring on people who are very like-minded individuals that are doing a style decision to really help people. So yeah, a very different sort of avenue.
Yeah. So because most of the franchisees that you mentioned are your existing happy clients, really, that that love what they do, and then I guess know your business inside out because they've been a client, and then they become a franchise. So I can imagine why it works. So what are some of your key learnings? Like you did mention F45 doing the wrong things, which I don't really know deeply about it, but like what were some of your key success? Like what are the reasons why you are still standing here today?
Yeah, I think firstly, it's growing slow. It's really getting the right team together, the right people on board, especially in a franchise system. It's really easy to say yes to people who are floating. Our franchise fees are north of $55,000 now. So that's really attractive. If you go, I'm going to sell 100 next year, that's a lot of money. But then all of a sudden you've got to service these franchise partners. If something goes wrong or something happens in their life, mentally they're not in, you really have to, it's all about. So there's two types of franchising in my opinion. One is transactional franchising, which is very much an F45. So they're a fixed fee model. So they open their doors and they pay a fixed fee back to the franchisor. So it's great if they're a good operator, because if they make a lot of profit, they've only got to pay a certain fee back. But for them, they just want to open as many as possible to get the most amount of money in. Where with KX, again, on a revenue basis, so where 8% of their revenue comes back to head office. So the better that they succeed, the better we succeed. So that's all comes down to support, being there for them and really helping them grow their business, because without that, we don't succeed. And also with the revenue model, if we have 2 studios that are half full, we make the same amount of money back to head office if we did 1 studio that was pumping. And so that's why we haven't saturated the market. We don't want a KX on every corner. It's strategically positioning them in the right places so we can fill the studios that can be full. They can have that exclusivity nature about them. I mean, as much as the client hates it, I love it when they come up to me and say, I just can't get into KX Richmond. It's so busy. And you go, well, from a business side, that's awesome, because yeah, we could put one down the road and that happened, but you want people to book in advance. You want people to struggle to get in, because it's no different to a restaurant, right? It makes people talk about it. It makes people, advance book and really drive that business.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be definitely number one. Number two, I learned very early on. So I sold a couple of franchises early on and I had a bit of money in the bank. And instead of investing it back into KX Pilates, I had this grand idea of KX Fitness to be the mother company and to have multiple offerings, and Pilates was just one of them. So we opened up 6 ballet bar studios called KX Bar. We had a yoga studio called KX Yoga in the hot yoga space. We had a cycle studio called KX Cycle, and we did retreats out of Bali. So we had a lot of different offerings to cater for people, and they were all successful in their own right. But KX Pilates was already 3-4 years in. It was already in a trajectory, different states as well. So I wasted a lot of time, energy, and effort. And I think that's probably another key thing as an entrepreneurial brain, getting their own way too often.
Yeah.
Yep. If I look back, I learned a lot of lessons. I lost a lot of money, but I invested a lot of money in that. And then fast forward to 2016, 17, I wound them all back or sold them off, rebranded a few of them. So yeah, they were successful in their own right as individual studios or a few multi-studios. But if I used that time, it's more time that was wasted.
Yeah.
The energy that was put into it, back into Pilates at the start, who knows where we'd be now. 50 to 100 studios, maybe even a couple of countries. So that was always the message of innovating within your business, not external to. And again, that was me going, okay, I'm bored of Pilates now. What else are we going to do? I'm bored of ballet bar studios now. And I wasn't passionate about anything else. That's the thing. It was this thing going, it would be amazing if we had all these different facets. But then when push came to shove, I didn't enjoy running the day-to-day of those businesses. So when I opened, I threw management into them, who were great managers, but at the same time, the drive for me was still behind Pilates.
Yeah.
So I always say that the other brands were just KX Pilates' poor cousins. They were never given the right time, or recognition that they deserve, because my eyes were still focused on Pilates.
I totally get you. And I was nodding away because I kind of experienced the same entrepreneur curse of having so many ideas and then going with all those cool ideas, which could all work if you had the time and effort that you would put with the same amount of time that you already put with Pilates. So I was like, yeah, it sounded like exactly what I've learned as well. And this leads me to the next question is, because you got to focus on Pilates, now you're able to really step out. So tell us the journey of you being able to put in a CEO, because you've already, it's almost like you raised a baby to adolescent and adult now, right? Now you can actually walk away, whereas what you did before with having more babies, having the other yoga, and it's like having newborn babies again.
Absolutely. So 2018 came along. We're at about, I'm going to say 35 studios or whatever. Lots of things happened. There was huge change that was going on internally. There was a lot of miscommunication within the network. Got to the stage where I just wasn't loving being the CEO of a franchise. And at the same, my son was born in 2015. So my responsibilities were shifting a little bit, and my mental focus was, I was just not passionate about growing a franchise anymore. I really wanted to focus on my family as well. And so I knew, again, one of my colleagues said to me, or another business owner said, well, I don't know what CEO his business will need to be in 12 months, but I'm going to go and find out, and I'm going to go and get the knowledge to get there. And in my sense, I was like, I don't have the energy nor the passion to do that. I'm just going to go find someone with been there, done that experience to help me grow. And it was actually an EO conference that I went to. We talked about it was an exit conference, but one of the big messages was hiring a CEO is a form of exiting your business. Yeah, with all the upside that you've still got purpose, you've still got your baby, but someone else who's probably more qualified and better equipped can help grow your business to the sky's the limit. And that's kind of when the lights went on. As I reached my goal in 2018 that I talked about, the 50 studios, 10 company studios, I was like, I don't want to sell, but I don't want to keep being in this position. So I was like, right, I'm going to go and find a CEO. As I said, I had a COO for 9 months. It didn't work out. He was a business mentor of mine that he had all the traits that I didn't in terms of strategy and analytics, but he really taught me a lot of lessons about changing culture. He tried to really corporatize KX, and it just wasn't us. It wasn't the right feeling. A lot of my franchise partners came to me quite concerned. I felt feeling like numbers and not people anymore. And although the strategy was great, as I said, we changed to a global strategy and looking at Southeast Asia to grow in, that sort of stuff. These were great things that I learned from him, but just the day-to-day hierarchical changes that he kind of made. Head office, half of them left. They didn't get along with him. So after 9 months, we called it quits. And luckily enough, I'd been talking to Selena, who's our current CEO, Selena Britt. So she worked with my wife, Andy, 10 years prior in corporate world. And she'd worked her way up from marketing roles into a general manager role at Curves, which is the largest female fitness brand that has existed. Now it's on the decline. But she was so passionate, and I knew that studios were closing in Australia. They were transactional. So they sold 600 plus, they opened 400 plus. I think they're down to like 80 now. So they did the classic thing of sell to anyone, open the doors to a majority, but then, they didn't support. And because they were a master franchise out of America, Selena wasn't allowed to do anything. She wasn't allowed to adapt anything, change anything for the Australian market. So a lot of frustrations that she had. But at the time, I couldn't afford her. She was private equity backed. Anyway, I tried this other COO, and after that didn't work, I went back to Selena, and we caught up every 3 months, and the question at the end was, hey, how are you going? You still loving your job? And then it was always a yes, and this is happening. And finally, I was like, right, I want you to be the first non-founding CEO of KX Pilates, and it kind of all worked. We're at the stage then where we had enough money to pay her. Basically, the best decision that I've ever made. Fast forward 5 years, she's done an exceptional job. She's doubled the company size. We're in, 6 countries now, and she's just incredible. The empathy that she has, the relationships, the trust that the franchise partners had with her business acumen is incredible. And the team that she has hired in the last 5 years, beyond incredible. They're all senior leaders, where back in the day with me, I had a lot of juniors working with me. So, because that's what we could have. So the business has definitely matured, which is fantastic, because like I work a couple of hours a week now. Like I catch up with her. I sit on the board. My wife stepped out of the marketing role as well, Andy. So We moved up to the Sunshine Coast 18 months ago. There wasn't a KX Pilates in Noosa, so my wife's jumped back in, opened a KX Pilates studio with her best friend up here, Jody, because she wanted to get back on the ground. She loves the product so much. I helped her teach for a little bit, but then I'm out now as well. So the focus is really what we want it to be. If I wanted to jump back in the business, I could in multiple roles at the moment. Really happy with what I'm doing. I've 3 kids. So we had another child in 2017 and another child in 2021. So 3 kids keeps me busy running around, school pickups, drop-offs and all the sports that come with it. So it's a pretty cool life that we have, designed and engineered ourselves because of that decision 5 years ago.
Yeah. And I think you were lucky that you knew this person who is your wife's friend, and you've known her work ethics. And so you were kind of patiently waiting for her because you knew that she was a sure bet. So like, I guess, would you say that that's the only or best way to get a CEO in, like someone who you really know? Or because it sounded like from the first hire was like someone from outside, and there's a higher chance of it not being, not working out well.
I didn't really know her, but there was just something when I met her for the first time that was like, oh my God, you're going to be incredible for this business. Like Pilates, we're majority female. So a female CEO and a male founder, I thought was a really, really good mix. She is the other end of the spectrum to me. And the first 2 years, I kind of mentored her into the role. She'd never been CEO before. So I mentored her in, and a lot of the things she would come and she'd be like, okay, I want to do this. And I was like, no way, we're going this way. Always came in the middle to an even ground that we both thought was really, really fair and reasonable. Fast forward now, 5 years, I very rarely make I make no day-to-day decisions. She's got complete control of the way the business is going. Because we work so closely together, she understands where Andy and myself sit in a lot of decisions before she even calls and asks us. And I think we're a lot harsher than she is. She's a lot softer, and it just really, the combination really, really works, especially because if I'm the spokesperson in terms of not even the face of the brand, because the face of our studios are the studio and the franchise partners. But I would say she's definitely the business head of the business now, and I'm just the face of the founder, which works really, really well too. So I've a lot of people have come to me and spoken to me about getting their own CEO. I think the biggest mistake people do is find someone similar to them, because they want to get along with them. They want to go out for drinks and hang out in the office and talk shop and everything like that. And then after a while, they go, hang on a minute, I can be doing just as good a job, if not better than they. So it's about finding someone who has all the skills that you don't possess. And once again, in an EO conference once, I was talking about strengths and weaknesses and saying how many people always try and focus on lifting their weaknesses, but if they spend the same amount of energy lifting their strengths, they'll be 500 times better than their strengths. And that was one of the things that I didn't want to get better at managing people or leading a team. I sat down and what am I really, really good at? I'm great at innovation. I love the international work that KX is doing. I love the relationships. They literally wheel me out in terms of a relationships meeting with a prospective franchise partner for international now. And then that's what I do. I get people together. I have fun. I make people feel welcome and really loved within the network. And again, a conference as well. I just get up there and talk about how passionate we are about the business and helping people change lives for the better. So there's definitely a role that you need to find we're really good at. And some people are good at that CEO role as a founder. I wasn't.
Yeah. Or most of the time you think you're good until you meet someone better, right?
True. And that's the question. Do you want to learn and grow and develop into that role, or find someone who's better at it than you could potentially ever could be?
Yeah.
So, and I think, again, a franchise CEO, I think one of the hardest jobs in the world is so hard because of the psychology that comes from it. So you're basically giving your brand to someone who they're paying you a licensing fee. And then with that money, you go and hire people to police the brand and tell them what they can and can't do. It's really hard to get your head around. So that's why it's all about relationships. And you need to have that trust. You need to have, someone who is going to go into war for you, that they're going to protect the brand at whatever cost. So at the same time, having these individual relationships, you've got to look after the whole brand as well. So it's hard. Yeah. It's really hard. And there's people unhappy every day in a franchise business. Yeah. So something that we are doing for the brand, there is someone in the network that is not happy with because it doesn't meet their direct interests. So it's it's navigating what's best for the brand, what's best for the business, and what's best for the individual franchise partner. So it's crazy, and you need someone who's really who can take it as a grain of salt. And because it's my baby, it was so personal.
Yeah.
I was losing so much sleep over things that just didn't mean much. And I was like, right, someone else needs to, as a job, like I know she doesn't treat it as a job. She treats it as her life as well. But to be able to wake up every day and go, right, I'm going to tackle whatever problem comes on my table. And then tomorrow's going to be a new day. I couldn't separate that from my personal life. It was very hard.
Yeah. Yeah. This is very inspiring, by the way, because it really showed that, at the end of the day, business is hard. And when you've been in the business for so long, for I think 14, 13 years now.
Yeah.
And so, it's time for you to kind of do other things, spend more time with family. And here's a story of where you don't have to sell. You don't have to give up this baby that you've built. And so you wrote a book about your journey. Can you share a little bit about what else can we learn in there? Because I'm already learning so much today and I can't wait to actually read your book. Tell us a little bit about what it's all about.
Sure. So the book is called Define Yourself, which is our tagline at KX, when passion, purpose, and business collide. And it's really about the journey of KX. So from startup, inception, growing a couple of company studios, the partnerships that were involved, to the franchise journey, the highs and lows of the business over 13 years. I've had some incredible wins. I've had some incredible losses. I ended up in court once, which wasn't fun at all, which taught me a lot. And the lessons that probably are in the book are probably where the belt to a young entrepreneur or a startup. And that's, if they can go through and not make the mistakes I did, they're going to be better off. And that's kind of where I sat. The last chapter or the last part of the book is a lot to do with franchising. So whether or not you want to franchise your brand, your business, whether you want to join a franchise, and things to look out for as well. Because I've learned over the years what works, what are the red flags as well. If you are joining a franchise, what to look out for in a franchisor, and different franchisors there are in terms of the dominating ones and the ones that are going to hold your hand, and the expectations that are set out and that sort of thing. So it's an absolute roller coaster of a journey. I'd been writing it for probably 8 years. I stopped just because I needed to live my life through the transition of a CEO before I could finish it. And then COVID hit. So we were painted with the same as the fitness, as gyms in COVID. We were the first to close and the last to open. So, 68 studios on March 23rd, 2020 went bang, we're closing our doors. So we had to really navigate and pivot, as the punchline was at the time, put everything online and really be there for our clients and really help them through. That was our theme. So been a crazy, crazy ride. My wife's been by my side since 2013 when she joined the business as well. And she was there beforehand, giving me advice, but her corporate marketing and IT background has, she's almost been the silent COO of the business throughout all the years. She's done absolutely every job in the business except a trainer. So, side by side and it's been crazy. Yeah. So, but it's been fun. It's been so rewarding. But no, there's some travel stories in there about my travels with some really good friends and lessons learned there. So it's just really about, the last 13 years of what's been going on and where we are today.
And I'm glad you've taken that long to write, because now we can kind of see the full journey, right? Because as you're writing it, you're still living through all the, crazy turns of life. And so you mentioned about travel as well. You do have like a grant that you're launching as well. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're really excited, as a joint sort of thing with the book launch. We're launching the first Young Entrepreneurs Travel Grant on October 9. So that basically is a $20,000 grant to the winner. Because for me, travel was something that enabled me to learn who I was as a person, and also to see the world in the bigger, what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, or what I back to Australia. So many people grow up in their little bubble of what the expectations are of their parents or their friendship groups. Or travel for me was freedom. I literally, back then, doesn't happen now, but back then in Melbourne Airport, there were those two big metal sliding doors you go through into immigration or whatever it was. And those doors were just excitement for me, because on one side, my mother was in tears saying, "Where are you going and why are you going away for so long?" As soon as I entered those doors, I was like freest person in the world. I could be who I wanted to be. I could do who I wanted to do. I went to an all private boys' school growing up. So there was a lot of expectations, and there's a lot of arrogance that came out of that as well. And I just wanted to put all of that pretentiousness and all that stuff that I'd been growing up with away and become who I wanted to be. So travel for me was a huge thing. I backpacked for a very long time, bootstrapped a lot of things. I think I visited 38 countries on a shoestring in the 3 years, and had a lot of fun, met a lot of people, and really learned who I was. But also that's where I came across, the business idea for KX Pilates. So it's travel for me is everything, and I wanted to give that back. So it's really about providing value to that young entrepreneur to go and seek themselves, go and look about what people are doing overseas and how they're doing it in their chosen field of business, and then come back and really get stuck in and set themselves up. Because I really feel that my father taught me that, business is a way to get ahead in life. You just got to work your absolute ass off at the start. And the grade also comes with 12 months of mentoring from yours truly and my team as well, which is really cool. So it's really about, the book is also just about value. It's about giving value back. And this was also another way that we found.
Yeah. So what kind of criteria do you need to meet in order to apply for this grant?
So you basically you can have an idea, you can have a startup, anything to do with wanting to grow and develop yourself and your business, basically. And that's kind of it. And I think it all comes to me in the submissions, and I choose a lucky winner. It's also about who I think helped the most as well. So yeah, and my expertise, and obviously with the EO network globally, which is so cool. I mean, our forum, we choose to go overseas for all of our retreats. So it's really cool to link in with other chapters and other businesses and see how they're doing. So I'm still doing it, even though I've got my own business and things, but it also gives me an excuse to go to these other countries, check out the fitness industry and what people are doing and how to bring things back into my business. So definitely still doing it, but I think especially in the beginning, it's really important to see. I think there's a lot of countries that are a lot more advanced in certain business areas than Australia is. Of course, we're doing pretty well, but the more ideas you can have, I think that the more successful you're going to become. And obviously your networks as well are.
Yeah, definitely. I guess you've shared a little bit here and there that you want to give back, but I usually like to kind of wrap up conversation with, what ultimately do you want the world to remember Aaron for?
The sole purpose of KX Pilates and me, it's really interesting because all the values of KX in our company are my values. So I've thrown obviously my personality into it all. But changing lives for the better is our calling. That's what we do. That's why we wake up every morning, and that's what we're super passionate about. So, if I can touch lives and change them for the better in any way at all, that's do what we do. So that's how I want to be remembered. It's still super exciting. Even walking into the Noosa studio here, and people grab me and just thank me for starting KX because it's changed their life in some way. Trainers come up to me and, say how grateful they are about where they are in their career progression and finding the style of Pilates within KX Pilates. So it's really cool. People after injuries, people after rehabbing themselves, after children, and also our franchise partners. Some of our franchise partners own 5 to 10 studios. They've completely changed their life financially, which is just awesome to know that I've assisted in them. Of course, they're the ones that have done the hard work, but yeah, we change lives for the better.
That's wonderful, Aaron. Well, you're already doing it, and I know you're going to keep doing it more. So thank you so much for being on the show. I will make sure to leave the links to your book as well as the grant so that people can apply. So thank you again for spending time with me today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.